Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us, only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger, a brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one. Welcome to Path Notes. A song, of course, by John Lennon. For 3 points, what was his middle name? Winston. Winston was his middle name. So what do we have with that? That sounds nice, right? Well, wait. Imagine there's no heaven. Does that sound nice? No hell below us. That sounds cool. Imagine all the people living for today. Okay, now I get the first line, right? So we're not thinking of, we're just in the moment. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. No religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. Okay. Well, and then we have imagine no possessions. So why are there countries? Why are there borders? Why are there, at least on the surface, and maybe even very deep, different kinds of people? You know, how do these cultures happen? Why don't why didn't we just have like, oh, just here we are on this earth, everything's cool, we don't need borders, right? Well, I think the borders are there for a reason. In America, our southern border has a lot of problems. Either side of the fence you're on, whether you're more on the left or right, there's problems at the border. And it's horrible what people have to go through or think they have to go through to get here. You know, my mom is from Germany, and I think it should both be easier and more difficult to get here. I think just for the safety of the country, we have to have borders. They have to be enforced. Otherwise, if you just say, okay, there's no borders, everything's just cool now. 5 minutes later, the North Korean army flies in and says, okay, thanks guys for the whole no borders thing. We're taking over though. And we have the Russians and, you know, so thanks for being so groovy, man. And now you'll have to do what we say, because you don't have any borders to enforce, right? Well, we do. And this is, you know, we'd be taken over instantly. So I think it would be nice if we didn't need borders, but they're there for a reason. And that doesn't mean everything in the past that led up to those borders was somehow a good thing. But the bad things that happened, you if the borders could have been enforced better, maybe they wouldn't have happened. It's very complicated. It's very complicated. But if everybody was cool, we wouldn't have to worry about it. But not everybody's cool. Just this world that we have, it's duality. We have duality. So I was thinking, like, well, what's it mean to be a native? What's a native? I was thinking of, there was a woman that I worked with like in 2001 or 2001 to 3, 4, something like that. She was a black woman. We were working at I was selling lawn care, and she was like something like a customer service person. And I remember talking to her, and I don't remember if she was talking about something to do with Africa or just like black people, or like, I forget exactly what she was talking about, but she said something like, those are my people. And I'm standing right in front of her, and I'm thinking, like, that kind of hurts my feelings a little bit. How am I not your people? I didn't say anything, but I was just processing that in my mind. How am I not your people? And so imagine, you're like, oh, well, her people are from Africa. Well, yeah, okay, but I think my people are too. And what's Africa? What are you talking about? What's Africa? Where exactly does Africa end? That border that you want enforced or don't want enforced? Or is it the color of her skin? What if she was like a lot lighter? Or what was like South, you can see what I'm getting at. So imagine that I was with her, or I'm a white guy and I'm with a black woman, or I'm with a black guy. And then a group of black guys tries to rob us. Now who's your people? Would my black friend automatically be on the black people's team? Of course not. And if it was white people trying to rob us, would I be on the white people's team? Oh yeah, let's rob her. We're all white. It's cool. Of course not. It's crazy. There's the term, I believe it's a Lakota term, all my relations. And it means basically like we're all related, all the animals, all the people, the earth. We're all related. We're all in this thing together. Here's a something from Kahlil Gibran I just read. I just got like 9 books from Kahlil Gibran. War and the Small Nations. Once, high above a pasture where a sheep and a lamb were grazing, an eagle was circling and gazing hungrily down upon the lamb. And as he was about to descend and seize his prey, another eagle appeared and hovered above the sheep and her young with the same hungry intent. Then the two rivals began to fight, filling the sky with their fierce cries. The sheep looked up and was much astonished. She turned to the lamb and said, "How strange, my child, that these two noble birds should attack one another. Is not the vast sky large enough for both of them? Pray, my little one, pray in your heart that God may make peace between your winged brothers." And the lamb prayed in his heart. Interesting, huh? I found out yesterday that my daughter is pregnant, and her mom called me and told me, and we were just discussing her situation, and it sounds like she's doing pretty well for herself, and it seems like I haven't met the guy that she's with, but it sounds like he has at least a good job and stuff and works for his dad's business. And so we were just talking about that. My daughter's 21, so she would be 22 when the child is born. And I was 18. Her and her mom were 18, almost 19. I was a couple months short of 19 years old when my daughter was born. It's kind of surreal to think. I mean, it's such a cool thing. It's like, it's awesome, and it's scary, and it's a lot of things all at once. And you wonder, what's this child going to do? What will this child be? Will the have some kind of business and career that's not even that doesn't even exist now? Because having a podcast didn't really exist when my daughter was born. And then so, of course there were radio shows and stuff, but there's so many things that are different now. But it's all still, it's all still the same but different. Well, what an amazing thing. Here's a song by Graham Nash. It's called Magical Child. As I lie beside you, feeling the life that we made with our souls, nothing like this ever happened to me. I seem to react to a vague memory. This is the way that she said it could be, having a magical child. As I stand before you, watching the love turn around in my eye, I've waited for so long for someone to care. I've waited for so long for someone aware. I've waited for so long for someone to share, having a magical child. Really makes me wonder why I waited for so long to bring another life to this place. Then I finally realized I was watching myself grow up. Can you not see it in his face, your face? Really makes me wonder why I waited for so long to bring another life to this place. Then I finally realized I was watching myself grow up. Can you not see it in his face, my face? As I lie beside you, feeling the life that we made with our souls, nothing like this ever happened to me. I seem to be reacting to a vague memory. This is the way that she said it could be, having a magical child. I think about, what it was like hanging out with my grandparents, and it sure seems like I'm a lot younger than them. I'm 40, and what did 40-year-olds look like when I was 5 or 10 or 15 or 20? Like I have some friends that are younger than me, and like one of my buddy Richie, we trained together, and he's I think 24, and so it's like he's a lot closer to he's only 3 years older than my daughter, but I'm like looking at him, and I think he's my friend. To me, I don't think we look very much different in age. But maybe he looks at me and I'm like the old guy that he trains with. And Or what do I look like? What do I look like to him? And then, like, when I was with, talked about a little bit on the air, get too much into it, but I was with my buddy Joey, who's, I think, 28, maybe say like 20, yeah, 28 maybe. And so we ran into my son's mom at a concert, and she was with a friend of hers who happened to be a friend of my buddy's. And so they get to talking, and like later on, like after he said, "Oh, I thought maybe for a second that was your daughter that he knew." And it's like, it's not crazy to think that my 28-year-old friend could happen to become friends with people my daughter's age, or my daughter happened to run into her somewhere. They end up hanging out at the same place and getting to know each other somehow completely separate from me. That's a weird one. So it's like I look at these friends that are 12 years younger, 16 years younger. Like, I look the same as them, don't I? I don't look older than them, do I? It was funny. I used to say I had a girlfriend of mine from like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. We broke up about 4 years ago or so. And when we were with my daughter, and sometimes we would take like my daughter and some of her friends to the movies. I did that a bunch of times. But she said something about, she bets that my daughter's friends have a crush on me or something. I'm like, what? Like, that's crazy. And I'd say, like, I'm an old fat guy with mustard on my shirt. And she's like, what? What are you talking about? I was like, that's how they would see me. Like, yeah, I'm not a fat guy. I don't really have mustard on my shirt. But from their perspective at the time, they're like, 15 years old, 16 years old, or like, younger. I'm the old guy. I'm like the dad. But she insisted that I wasn't old and fat with mustard on my shirt. But it's just funny how our perspectives change over time. And I heard Jordan Peterson, he was talking about someone, I won't get into that whole thing, but he was saying something like, it was something that it was Milo Yiannopoulos, or I forgot how to say his last name, but like he had something happen to him when he was a kid, like 14 years old. Well, just to spell it out, don't need to be mysterious. He ended up having a sexual relationship with some older guy. I think it was I don't know if it was a priest or something, some older guy when he was like 14. But he was saying that like he wanted it to happen. And then later on, so then Jordan Peterson like saying like, well, what is really going on? Jordan Peterson is a psychologist, and he says, well, what's really going on is Milo Yiannopoulos hasn't updated his perspective. He's still thinking about it like a 14-year-old, and then Milo did actually end up saying, yeah, actually what happened to him was wrong because he was just a kid. So that's just besides. I'm not trying to get into something that's that negative and dark. My point was just the perspectives that we have that we have at different ages. And I sent a message to a couple of friends of mine, and it's like, I'm going to be a grandpa. Like, whoa. Do I look like a grandpa to you? And then I'm looking in, I was in the car. I was just coming home from the grocery store when my daughter's mom told me. I get out to the car and it says, call me when you get a chance. And I called her back and we were still talking by the time I got home. And I'm looking in the mirror, rearview mirror. I could see the gray hairs, some gray hairs in my chin. What's happening, you know? So now, you know, to think, what am I going to, like, what am I going to leave behind? You know, I always have it, you know, somewhere in my mind that we don't know what we're going to get out of this world. I might not make it through the end of this podcast. A meteor could come crashing down. I could just have an aneurysm, a stroke, die. I don't know if I'm going to live another 10 seconds or not. So, I mean, I'm not like walking around all paranoid, watching out for meteors all the time, but I do consider that, and I spend a fair amount of time at a cemetery, not just because it's a cemetery, but because it's a cool place to climb trees where there's not a lot of people. There's woods and there's a deer and cool birds, cool animals to see. And, you know, when a lot of the parks and stuff would be crowded, scaring away all the animals, it's cool to go to this place and have a place to climb. And so when I walk through and I look at these graves, and there's babies that just live a day. Some live a year, 5 years, 3 years, 2.5 years, 80 years, 100 years. There's everything. There's no pattern. There's no pattern except we're checking out sometime. You know, that seems to be the pattern. I was watching some Jason Silva videos, and he had one talking about the 3 deaths. And one was, I was going to look it up, I remember actually. One of them was the death is like the death of our body, when we just cease to be alive anymore. And then the second is after we're buried. And then the third death is the last time anyone says your name. That's a heavy one. The last time someone says your name. What are you going to leave behind? You know, I've left, you know, a fair amount of my philosophy, which is always developing in these podcasts that I do. I have a fair amount of my system of training written out, but not very much of it. I think I'm going to be, I'll just say I am going to start compiling my thoughts, my notes, my experiences, my influences, and I'm going to make a program. Some of it I'll be able to some of it will be for sale. I was talking about I made a suggestion in this yoga group that I'm in. There's like 20,000 people in this yoga group on Facebook. And I suggested, how about a tap out in yoga like we have in jiu-jitsu? So there's a lot of injuries from teachers adjusting people in yoga classes. And there's, it seems like these students or the teachers want these postures so bad, they don't understand that they're hurting themselves getting to them. And so the teacher, when I was going to this yoga class I was planning on being a yoga teacher. Sometimes I was going to 2 or 3 classes a day. The teacher, the way he would crank on people, one of them, that stuck out of my mind was because I ended up getting together with her and staying with her being together for a couple years. But he was like putting her leg behind her head and just cranking and cranking. And guess what? She was having hip problems. And no kidding. Gee, I wonder what that's from. I mean, it was just dumb. And so I quit going there. And so I have a broad range of experiences. And so what I'm going to start doing more of is writing it out. And that can be the legacy, like a buddy of mine, Blake, who I trained martial arts with. He's really good. He was actually my first guest on the podcast, but I've known him since I was in high school. And he was talking about how one of his instructors, Marcelo Monteiro, you're passing on your knowledge through your students, but he talks about having the curriculum. So that's what I want to start putting together, this curriculum. It's a huge project. So I'll have ways to simplify it, and then that's what I can pass on, because I've had a lot of great students, young students from 7 years old to 80 something. And I know that I've had a positive effect on them, and I'll continue to work with as many people as I can. But as I've written before, there's a Bruce Lee quote. I'll see if I can find it. But it's like, when I look back on my path, I don't want to see people following me. I want to see a bunch of branches off of my path, of people that were my students, and I want to see them creating their own path. And let's see if I can find this Bruce Lee thing. Sorry, it's worth it. So do you think about what you want to leave behind? What will be your legacy? What will be your legacy? A good teacher can never be fixed in a routine. Each moment requires a sensitive mind that is constantly changing and constantly adapting. A teacher must never impose this student to fit his favorite pattern. A good teacher protects his pupils from his own influence. A teacher is never a giver of truth. He is a guide, a pointer to the truth that each student must find for himself. I am not teaching you anything. I just help you to explore yourself. And that's why I call my style freestyle kettlebell training, or freestyle bodyweight training, or just freestyle. There's no trademark on it. You see? I'm trying to help people find their own strength, and that's what I want to pass on. Let's see. There's something else I wanted to read here. Kind of changing the subject. Pass the time with you in my mind. It's a rather quiet night. Feel the ground against my back. counting stars against the black, thinking about another day, wishing I was far away. Whether they were dreams or worries, you were there with me. Sister, I hear you laugh. Sorry, just Sister, I hear you laugh. My heart fills full up. Keep me, please. Sister, when you cry, I feel your tears running down my face. Sister, sister, keep me. I hope you always know it's true. I would never make it through. We could make the sun go down just by walking away. Playing like we used to play. Our kingdom will never go away. Feel you beating in my chest. I'll be dead without. Sister, I hear you laugh. My heart fills full up. Keep me, please. Sister, when you cry, I feel your tears running down my face. Sister, sister, will you keep me? I will never make it through. Hope you always know it's true. You can make the heavens fall just by walking away. Sister, I hear you laugh. My heart fills full up. Keep me, please. Sister, when you cry, I feel your tears running down my face. Sister, sister, keep me. Dave Matthews. I don't think I'll expand on that one too much. I'll just leave it there. So most people just listen to the show. The show is also on YouTube, and if you happen to notice, the background, the picture may look a little fuzzy, a little pixelated. I usually do the show when it's dark out, the natural light isn't coming in, and I use just one, like my ceiling light. So I don't want like bright light in my face when I'm doing the podcast. So if the picture looks a little funny, that's why. But maybe there'll be a time when I figure out how to do it, like some kind of cool way to have it be dark, and I'm just speaking into the dark, but you could still kind of see me. We'll see how that goes. So when we were talking about, the song Imagine, no countries, no religions, and all this stuff, like something that's getting popular now is, well, not now, it's been popular for a long time, but getting more socially acceptable in America is psychedelics. And I don't do them anymore. I have before, and I have no interest really in doing them now. But what is commonly reported from using them, is the sense of oneness. Like, we're not really separate from each other. We're all part of this same thing. And some people really promote it, and I think everybody's kind of in a different spot, so maybe they can be helpful to people, and maybe someone else, it's the worst idea in the world to get started trying them out. I don't think they're necessary at all. And that's what a lot of the teachers come to. Like Ram Dass, for one, he was taking copious amounts of LSD and who knows what else. And then he got to where like, oh yeah, you don't even really need to do that anymore. You don't, it's not it. So it may have been helpful, but it's like once you're across the river, you don't need the boat anymore. Just like seeing ourselves in someone else, and realizing that if we were maybe in their shoes, so maybe you're identifying as a liberal and you're very anti-Trump, you are Trump. And if you're Trump and you're seeing what these liberals are doing, you are those liberals. That might take a while for some people to get to. And it doesn't mean you have to like everything that he does. Do you like everything that you do? Or are you battling a part of yourself that seems to be against another part of yourself? So isn't that what we're all doing? So if we can look at people like they're fighting something too. So you don't have to like what they're doing. But what can you do that's helpful? Like when you see that person, I see like a lot of anti-Trump, just like hate. And it's not that I'm, a big like Trump supporter or a Trump or anti-Trump either. I'm not, neither one. I see these situations, these political situations, a little bit different. Once I had, I guess you could, it was called a realization of duality. There was a moment when I just understood duality. Like, oh, it just sunk in. And it was like just download, and I could explain it, but it doesn't mean it's going to sink in to whoever I explain it to. When I have explained duality, I remember talking with it was a girlfriend at the time and a friend of hers about duality, and her friend's like, "Oh, that's not that's not what I thought duality was, or that's not how I understand it." I'm like, okay, well, that's duality. It's part of it. And then and my girlfriend kind of thought duality was something different too. Yeah, that's duality. So there was just a time when I just kind of like got it. I just understood. So I don't vote. Maybe it would be a good idea to. Maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. Are we against borders? No. Am I against borders? No. I think it should be easier to get into this country. What? You said there are borders. Yeah. I think it should be harder to get into this country. Oh, racist. Okay. It's both. I don't think I'm a racist, but I think it should be easier and harder to come into this country. Not everyone has our best intentions in mind. Not everybody has our best interest in mind, rather. Not everybody comes here with the best intentions. It's just, it's complicated. It's complicated. I'm going to just kind of pick something randomly here. This is one of the books I just got. So I haven't read this before. Repentance, Kahlil Gibran. On a moonless night, a man entered into his neighbor's garden and stole the largest melon he could find and brought it home. He opened it and found it still unripe. Then, behold, a marvel. The man's conscience woke and smote him with remorse, and he repented, having stolen the melon. Values. Once a man unearthed in his field a marble statue of great beauty, and he took it to a collector who loved all beautiful things and offered it to him for sale. And the collector bought it for a large price, and they parted. And as the man walked home with his money, he thought, and he said to himself, how much life this money means. How can anyone give all this for a dead carved stone buried and undreamed of in the earth for 1,000 years? And now the collector was looking at his statue, and he was thinking, and he said to himself, what beauty, what life, the dream of what a soul, and fresh with the sweet sleep of 1,000 years. How can anyone give all this for money, dead and dreamless? The scholar and the poet. Said the serpent to the lark, thou fliest, yet thou canst not visit the recesses of the earth where the sap of life moveth in perfect silence. And the lark answered, Aye, thou knowest overmuch. Nay, thou art wiser than all things wise. Pity thou canst not fly. And if he did not hear, and as if he did not hear, the serpent said, Thou cannot see the secrets of the deep, nor move among the treasures of the hidden empire. It was but yesterday I lay in a cave of rubies. It is like the heart of a ripe pomegranate, and the faintest ray of light turns it into a flame rose. Who but me can behold such marvels? And the lark said, None. None but thee can lie among the crystal memories of the cycles. Pity thou canst not sing. And the serpent said, I know a plant whose root descends to the bowels of the earth, and he who eats of that root becomes fairer than Astarte. And the lark said, no one but thee could unveil the magic thought of the earth. Pity thou canst not fly. And the serpent said, there is a purple stream that runneth under a mountain, and he who drinketh of it shall become immortal even as the gods. Surely no bird or beast can discover that purple stream. And the lark answered, if thou willest, thou canst become deathless, even as the gods. Pity thou canst not sing. And the serpent said, I know a buried temple, which I visit once a moon. It was built by a forgotten race of giants, and upon its walls are graven the secrets of time and space. And he who reads them shall understand that which passeth all understanding. And the lark said, verily, if thou so desirest, thou canst encircle with thy pliant body all knowledge of time and space. Pity thou canst not fly. Then the serpent was disgusted, and as he turned and entered into his hole, he muttered, empty-headed songster. And the lark flew away, singing, pity thou canst not sing. Pity, pity, my wise one, thou canst not fly. How much do we try to understand the other team, the other side? Can we see that there is the other team, the other side in ourselves? It's easy to become part of a group, but still kind of feel isolated also. You can feel isolated if you're still thinking as an individual, because you'll see in the group that even though they may have some of the same characteristics, there's other ones that are missing. I became a vegetarian in 1994, and I've been vegan about half that time. And so sometimes when I think I'm going to be, I was like part of like a vegan Facebook group. I'm part of some still. But sometimes when I would say something, the amount of like backlash I would get for some things, it's like this is like a really closed-minded way of thinking that you have. Sometimes I wasn't even like, usually when I would post on this group, which was rare, answering somebody's question, maybe I would be quoting a doctor, and I would give the book I was reading from or whatever. And it was like, sometimes you'd think, oh, a group of vegans, it gets into that duality, like we're all the same, but we're not all the same. Most of the time, it's rare that I even like mention that I'm a vegan, like in a group setting. It usually just doesn't come up. Or even if somebody asks me, if I'm somewhere, if somebody asks me if I want, I don't know, something non-vegan, I'll just say no, thanks. I won't say, oh no, I'm a vegan. If I'm, I don't know, some, whatever it is, I usually don't offer that information right away. I think a lot of what goes on is like divisions of whether it's political or whatever. I don't think there's as much racial divide as what we're presented with in the media. Sure, it happens. There was a time I didn't get it. I applied for a job. This was a long time ago. I was probably early 20s. I applied for a job at this landscaping place. And a buddy of mine was a foreman there. And the owner, when I went to meet him, he didn't give me a job because he just hired through the Mexican consulate. So me, a white guy, didn't get a job because I wasn't a Mexican. So what it looked like he liked to do is he had them in apartments. They're probably really crappy apartments. If I remember correctly, I saw them, and or my buddy told me about it. I don't remember. This is a long time ago. But well, if you get them from the consulate, they come here from Mexico, they need a place to stay. The employer just happens to have these apartments, so he's probably charging them rent, and there's probably a lot of them living in a small space, and it's not kept up very well. So they're living in these like pretty bad conditions, but apparently they, at least for the time, see it as an opportunity to get away from whatever they were trying to get away from, which is another reason why we have to have these borders. If there weren't borders, what would these people cross to get away from what they're wanting to get away from? If there's not a border, what are they going to cross? It's hard to imagine living in a place. I know some people that listen to the show are probably living in some of these places where it's not safe. They want to leave. Just the government's corrupt. Yeah, the American government's corrupt too, but you can live here in relative safety no matter what race you are. People from Africa are moving here by the thousands or millions or hundreds of thousands or whatever it is. Fine, cool. So if it was that bad, why are there so many people coming here from Africa? The answer is it's better for them because they can move back, but they want to stay. And I've known a lot of them. When I used to drive a cab, there was a lot of dudes from like Nigeria and from several countries in Africa. Why are they here? It's better. They might have had degrees in this or that, but they could come here, get a job as a cab driver relatively easily, and make decent money. And you know, the division of like even like black people or people from Africa. There was, you know, so sometimes I was driving and I would have black people from America in the car, and they would talk about how they didn't like the Africans. I'm not talking about one person. I'm talking about a lot. Yeah, I heard it a lot of times that the black people that from black people here that they did not like the Africans. Said they were rude. They said they were this or that, and then I also heard from people from Africa that they didn't really like the black people here. They're lazy. They're this or that. That's them saying it. They didn't. It was just kind of like perplexing, but you know, what do you do with that? And then I'd meet like black women from here that said they didn't want to date black guys. They thought black guys were gross. I'm not talking about just one. I'm talking about I don't know how many. But then, you know, somebody else might prefer black guys. You know, we get everything, don't we? So maybe when we look at somebody, maybe we don't like what we see. Maybe it's a part of ourselves that's being reflected. Oh, we don't like that. We don't like that part of ourselves. If we could just see other people as ourself, that's me wearing different clothes, doing a different job. That's me doing something that I 100% disagree with. How can that guy be so cruel, heartless? How can I be so cruel and heartless? We should turn the questions back on ourselves. Thank you for tuning in. See you next time.